great scenes, it's the town of Mauritius, huh? All of you from Mauritius.
From Mauritius and also from Bannu family. All of them.
All of them Bannus?
Yes.
Mauritius is dear to me not because Bhunus are Mauritians. Bhunus are dear because they are Mauritians.
Yes, that's right.
Right? It should be understood in the right perspective.
Yes.
Right. Now shall we start? Bismillah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Sir, do you think the Indian government will ever allow us to examine the tomb of Hazrat Isa to prove that he is really buried there?
You see, this is a very difficult question. First of all, from the point of view of religious attitude to the buried prophets, to the graves of the prophets and the buried holy bodies of the prophets, will it be a welcome idea to even suggest that the tomb should be unearthed, dug out, and the body should be examined? This is a very important and very sensitive issue. But some people may take the attitude that because it is not known so far, 100%, that it is Jesus who is buried there, so any inquiry, while the issue hangs in balance, undecided as yet, would not be in any way, should not be in any way taken to be an act of insult to the Jesus, to the body of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. In that, so that is why I said it's a bit involved issue. Secondly, if we do it, Ahmadis, whatever we find will be taken with a pinch of salt by others, if not with definite doubt or rejection. If the Christians do it, on the other hand, there is a very real likelihood of their, meddling with the facts and trying to prove that it is just a fake thing and not real. This has happened before, many a time in fact. In case of Turin Shrine, what they did was, according to the Christian scholars themselves, who examined the report of NASA along with some representatives of the church, according to them it was just a fraudulent approach and a willful attempt to mislead the people of the world regarding the issue of the genuineness of Turin's shroud. Now, for instance, it was related that the age of the shroud could not be beyond 1200 years, and because of the carbon testing, this is a well-proven fact. Now, a Russian scientist has taken it up and challenged it, who is an expert on carbon testing. He said the carbon testing can fluctuate between 1000 years either way, in this direction and that direction. How can you say with certainty that this 1200 years are a certain age, this certain age? It could be 200 or 2200 or any period in between. So there are other scientists who have also taken it up. So that is why I am very doubtful as to the results of any investigation carried out by reopening the grave and putting the body or parts of the body to test, etc. As far as the Indian government is concerned, Allah knows best what their attitude would be, because they are making it a source of income for themselves. They are attracting tourism. Yet I doubt if they do believe that it is the grave of Jesus Christ. See? So it is just a godsend for them. that a grave happens to be in India, which is considered by some scholars to be possibly that of Jesus Christ. So why should they remove this cover, this cloak of uncertainty, if it is uncertainty, to which, as I believe, as they would argue, to prove to the world that it is not Jesus Christ, so the tourists will cease to come just for this attraction. So either way, this is very difficult to decide. From our point of view, from others' point of view, from the point of view of the danger of people who are willfully interested to willfully meddle with the facts and change them. So another very important point is that these graves should not be unduly overemphasized, because the argument of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam, which preceded this discovery, was very powerful and potent argument in favor, from the Quranic point of view, of death of Jesus Christ, from the biblical point of view, in favor of the death of Jesus Christ, and from both points of view of his migration. So this is a very strong argument in favor of Ahmadiyya point of view, that the most important sources of history, Judaic history, and also particularly the history of the period of Jesus Christ, point their fingers at the same thing, that Jesus was attempted to be crucified so that he could die upon cross, but there is certainly no evidence that he died upon the cross. On the contrary, the biblical evidence is that the person who was taken down was still bleeding, and after having been taken down, he bled. And also there is an incontrovertible evidence that when his legs were not broken, like the legs of other thieves, the thieves who were also hanging by his side, they were definitely broken. And his body was carried away in a cloak of secrecy. It was kept away from the Jewish site. Before the Jews could have access to that body, the grave was found empty and it had already left. He was seen alive in the same body with the same wounds by his own disciples. All these overwhelming facts speak of Jesus' deliverance from the cross and escape from the territory where he was attempted to be crucified. Now, these are the facts which speak. Now, it is not for us at all to show him buried anywhere in the world, because he must have died somewhere at least, if not in Kashmir, somewhere else. So the crucial point is that to the main argument, the grave of Srinagar is not that important as some people think. Moreover, I also looked at it from another angle when I tried to find out if the first information was given to Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam by Allah himself, like the death of Jesus was revealed to him by ilham, by revelation, which repeatedly informed him that your old view that Jesus is alive is wrong. He's dead, is like ordinary human prophets, he passed away. No such information was given to him by ilham regarding this grave. This is a very important thing. This omission in itself speaks. So it was discovered incidentally by one of his companions, Nuruddin, by the name of Nuruddin, who was also called Khalifa Nuruddin, but he's not the same Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Awwal. He's another Nuruddin. But a very holy man. He found it that in Mahalla Khanyar in Srinagar, there is a grave of an old prophet who is called Yuz Asaf. So this put Masih Maud Islam onto the way of research, and many an Ahmadi scholars of that period helped him finding out material in favor of the possibility of that person being Jesus Christ. If he is, well and good, most welcome. But if he is not, then it does not in any way weaken our argument, which was based on the scripture evidence and also the natural evidence, human evidence, evidence supported by human common sense, I mean. Jesus must have died somewhere. He was not a son of God or supernatural, but he did not die there because there was no grave in that area. Now people are speaking of some grave which has bones of Jesus Christ and some others along with it. These are the new issues raised by church and things which attempts to confuse the whole issue. But one thing is certain, up till now, 2000 years have passed since, almost 2000, and the Christians didn't know where Jesus was buried. He must have escaped that area, that is what I mean. He must have gone out of the reach of their arms of information. They fell short, within the territory to which they had access, and then Jesus must have gone beyond and outside. So they found no evidence during the last 2000 years of even a claim that Jesus died here and here died his mother and so on and so forth. Those who migrated with him became a forgotten and closed chapter in the history of Christianity. No one even attempted. Surprisingly so, because if Jesus had risen to the heaven, what about the rest of his companions who just disappeared from the scene? So they must have left the territory and gone elsewhere. So I personally like the grave to be that of Jesus Christ. That would be a lot of work has done by Masih Maud Islam and his companion. So that will resolve the issue. But if not, like the Christians are doing it now, they are publishing facts. Oh, another grave is discovered in Japan of Jesus Christ, another that place and that place and that place. They are extremely panicky about the Ahmadiyya doctrine and the way it is supported by facts. So that is why they want to confuse the issue, and they themselves want to highlight this far more than we should ever do. They say, all right, if the grave is not that of Jesus, then all the Ahmadiyya, edifice of arguments in favor of Jesus' death are also demolished. This is wrong. Grave or no grave. How many prophets are there whose graves are discovered? Can you doubt about their death? So the death is a 100% certain thing. There is no shadow of doubt. He has not risen to heaven bodily. He must remain here on earth. Is he hiding himself somewhere, still alive? So death is a natural phenomenon. To reject this phenomenon to have taken place in the case of a particular person requires a very strong argument, overwhelmingly strong, to prove that this man escaped death and unnaturally remained alive for that long. No such evidence can be produced in favor of Jesus Christ in the least. So don't weaken your own argument by overemphasize certain things. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please.
I would like to change my first question now to really
course.
carry on to the subject of Jesus Christ and Christianity. Now, after the event of the crucifixion, Jesus moved out of Judea, as you say, somewhere outside the reach of
The people of that time,
of that
there,
time,
yes, correct.
But then Christianity took on a different form, or rather, the mission of Jesus took on a
No,
different.
no, then Christianity remained true to its form, and what was left behind began to change.
Yes, that's true. But the figure of Paul appeared on the scene, and we have a different.
Much later.
Yes. My question is really, I mean, how do we regard Paul? Because the Christianity that we know today is really
You see, the
Paulinism.
Christianity got divided right in the beginning, not immediately after the departure of Jesus Christ, but a few years after that, when it is claimed that St. Paul saw him in a vision. And he instructed himself. And the vision was so lifelike that the way he described it seemed as if Jesus had himself appeared and instructed him that I am going somewhere and then you better take over and do this and that. Now from then on the Pauline age begins. What was there before? The 12 disciples of Jesus Christ, his apostles, who were directly instructed by him himself as to the nature of his religion and the claim of his faith, of his status and so on. None of them agreed with Paul. So would you weigh, on the one hand, putting this on the scale St. Paul's vision, on the other the evidence of 12 disciples of Jesus Christ who stood by him throughout his life, who suffered with him and for him, who knew what Christianity was, learnt what Christianity was from Jesus Christ himself. They were all adamant that Christ did not bring a new religion. They were all adamant that he was a prophet of God, not son in the literal form. They were all united in this opinion that Judaism remains to be their faith and they cannot break their links with Judaism. This was their position exactly as the position of Jamaat Ahmadiyya vis-a-vis the rest of the Muslims. And this is the true faith. Now what happened then happened now in our case as well. Within 70 years or so of this debate, the Jewish people had started coercing the loyal Christians, that is, those who remain loyal to the message of Jesus Christ and whatever he had taught them. They wanted to force them out of Jewish temples because they would go to the Jewish temple and say their prayers there. They insisted on having their right to belong to Judaism. You know what they did? According to law, perhaps they couldn't throw them out. So what they did was they added to their services some extremely insulting words for Jesus Christ. Blasphemous passages were added to their prayers. So anybody who enters the temple would pray in the words prescribed. And those words said Jesus was a cursed man and this is Na'udzubillah min zalik, and blasphemous portions were added. This is how they test the truth of a true Muslim today. Unless he blasphemes against Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam, no profession of kalama la ilaha illallah can prove his being a Muslim at all. You may say it 100,000 times, la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. The mullah would say still not enough. The only kalima which is acceptable to us to prove your identity as Muslim is say la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah and then abuse Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian as a liar and impostor and this and that. So this is how the history repeats itself, you see. Exactly the same measure taken by them as the Jewish people did earlier, but those who suffered at their hands were not the Paulians. They themselves had broken away from Christianity. They were not targeted, never targeted by them. Those who were targeted were the true Muslims who were called Ammonites or Nasranis, Nazarenes. And they were the monotheists who never accepted the doctrine of Godhead of Jesus Christ. Right? You got it?
Yes, sir. So Paul then is really like a, should we say, an apostate, or I mean, what is his position? How can we regard
His
him?
position is that of all such people who add innovations in religions and lead the people away from truth to falsehood, from light to darkness. That is his position, because he was for numbers. He wanted to add number to Christianity and become a leader, because himself he had been a very staunch Jew before. He was one of those who hated Jesus Christ and his message. So his own personality is cloaked in many doubts. Who he was, what he wanted to do. All that we know is that he wanted to assume the unchallenged leadership, unshared leadership of the new Christianity which he gave birth to. And as such, we must pay tribute to him for his wisdom, only limited sense of wisdom, of growing as a great leader of his time, and adopting a strategy which made him successful, although Christianity lost to that stratagem. But he became very successful. What he did was, he started supporting the mythical doctrines or views of Romans who had believed in a sort of Trinity before Jesus Christ, in which Son played a very important role. And that sort of Trinity did exist before Jesus Christ, and it is to that the Holy Quran refers to when it says that they are only following, there is no Trinity, but they are only following the traditions of the earlier people. So it is St. Paul, which without name is in fact mentioned there, the Christianity which took birth from St. Paul followed the olden mythical and legendary beliefs in a sort of tripartite God, which they began to follow, and there is no more to it. So by giving in to the popular views of the Romans, he thought he would escape persecution at the hands of Romans and also at the hands of the Jewish people, because he had himself admitted, we have nothing to do with you. But he failed in at least one thing. The Romans continued to treat them with doubt and suspicion, and even the Pauline Christians were occasionally persecuted by the Romans. But much more so, according to the evidence of the caves, we know that even in Rome, true Christianity of Jesus' stem did spread, and those people, those early Christians, or the Christians during the 300 years of Christianity, who sought shelter in the caves, did not believe in Trinity. That evidence is being unearthed, and it's amazing. That is why many scholars who study Dead Sea Scrolls and other such things, they sometimes are confused themselves in giving a in the identification of the people of the caves. They say because there is no definite Christian doctrine to be discovered from the archives of these graves, so they said they must have been a Jewish people. because biblical faith was also mentioned there. No Trinity. Unity of God was emphasized, and also Jesus. So, putting them together, they conclude that Christians might have gone there later on, but these caves must have been the shelter of the Jewish people before Jesus Christ. So many theories are now springing up, but the obvious conclusion which should be made, they do not make. That is, the people were truly Christians. They suffered at the hands of the Romans during that period, and the history supports this view. And not for the sake of their view in Trinity, because that view agreed with theirs. The Roman Empire must have targeted those Christians who believed in the unity of God as against their own belief. So our research group is further investigating into all these things and the evidence, how to read it, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot to come yet from our research group, inshallah.
Thank you.
Please.
No, this question.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. May I deviate from Christianity to Islam?
What?
May I deviate from Christianity to Islam now?
Haven't you as yet? I'm amazed.
My question is that we know that it is important to say our namaz on time, but living in a society where we are now, where we are really pushed for time, and we don't have time to say namaz on time. What I would like to know is that what benefit do we lose by not saying it on time?
Have you done bath or not yet?
Yes, I have.
Have you got initiated into Ahmadiyyat?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Did you also promise that I'll always give preference to my faith or worldly objects?
Yes.
Or did you not?
Yes. I do.
So, in your question, which is faith and which is worldly objects? Which part makes faith and which part worldly objects? You don't know? The answer is there already. There is no question of any confusion. If there is a contradiction between, or choice I should say, between faith and worldly objects, you have promised to God that you will always prefer the faith of worldly objects, so do it. You owe far more to God than to your temporary employer. All the means of livelihood at your disposal were put by God. All the potentials of your capabilities, your talents were provided to you by God. So these temporary, so-called sustainers, by employing you in companies or in government jobs, etc., how can you compare them with God, putting them in one scale and God on the other? So the first answer was only by the way of an argument. Otherwise, no sane man will ever weigh between this and that. God has a prior right over everything. But He is also so kind, so generous, so magnanimous, that He has fixed the times of the prayer in a manner that there is a lot of cushioning, a lot of possibility of, alternative times within the time of the prayer. Zuhr time begins from after the sun has declined, the moment it has declined, to the time when it goes halfway between the decline of the sun in the beginning and sunset. It's a lot of margin. And when the two times merge together, when there is not enough time for you to say the prayers separately, you can do them with in Jama. That is, you can say Zuhr prayer together with Asr. But that is exceptional. But margins are so many, the possibilities are innumerable. And yet, if you can't say your prayer during work, then chuck the work away. You see? But I doubt if you really are compelled to, do away with the prayer because of your job. When I told Ahmadis previously during my sermons that no way could you sacrifice your prayers. You must prefer it and tell your employers that even if the time comes within the overall time of my service, I'm going to have a few minutes off at least, half an hour or 15 minutes in whichever time you can say your prayer. And most of the employers do cooperate, and some say, all right, deduct that much money from our service. But most do not, So this is just a hypothetical question, and even in that respect I have answered it. Right?
Yes.
Please.
Assalamu alaikum, Hazrat. Whilst we know all Qurans are exactly the same, there are different ways of numbering the verses.
Yes.
For our Ahmadis, we number all the verses, but for many other Qurans, some Bismillahs, they don't number them. Can you explain?
Doesn't make any difference really. If you show in the beginning of the Quran that this is our system of numbering in the introductory words, then no confusion is born, no confusion is created at all. So this is what we do. Now whenever we publish the Quran, we mention it in the introductory words that our system of numbering includes Bismillah, because we believe that between the Surah Fatiha and end of the Nas, everything which is within this is Quran. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim could not be considered as an extraneous thing. It most certainly is a part of the Holy Quran and a part of every surah before which it is mentioned. So we logically, this ensues that we should count Bismillah as the first verse. The others say, yes, we believe, but Bismillah is repeated, so it is understood. And when you talk of a surah, there is no need for counting Bismillah because Bismillah is common. Because of its being common, if you, do not count it, the number which we gave to the verses would be more understandable, they believe. Because they think that when we talk of Baqarah, the real Baqarah, as different from other surahs, is Alif Lam, starts from Alif Lam Mim. But when you talk of Bismillah, it is no different. The first verse of Bismillah is common to all others except one, Surah Tawbah. You see? So they say, logically they build their case that instead of making a very positive distinction between the first verse of this and first verse of that surah, when you count Bismillah, you help the confusion. Every surah will have the first verse as the same. So knowing that it is a part of the surah, they say we leave it out and begin with the next verse, which is in fact the second.
So the decision to number the verses came much after the...
Of course.
Thank you.
It was never reported at the time of Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Nobody thought of such things. Later on, when references grew, and the custom of giving references grew, then they started talking of numbers. Previously, it was just a verse mentioned, and surah mentioned, that was all. Verse that and that of that surah. Yes?
In the Holy Quran, it has been mentioned that we must always eat lawful things. But these days, animals are being fed with unlawful things, i.e. blood and other things which they are not supposed to be fed.
Do you eat chicken raised in your own farms, for instance, or not? Chicken raised in your own home?
Yes.
Or places where they do not feed chicken with anything haram. Do you eat the meat of that chicken? or no?
We don't know what they are fed on.
You know that they are not fed on haram things. This much you know.
Yes,
And so you eat that meat,
Yes.
don't you?
yes.
And you know that they themselves feed themselves on haram. When they eat the filth, the dung, you know, all the worms and things, what do? Do they eat halal meat?
Well,
Would you permit yourself to eat worms and dung and things, considering that to be halal?
no.
So why do you eat the meat of that? But why must you remain confined to the domain of animal kingdom? Why not turn your gaze to the vegetative kingdom? Why not consider on what the plants of wheat are fed, and the flowers are fed, and the fruits, plants of fruits are fed? Sheer filth, you know. The filthier the things are, the better for them. And how this filth is completely transformed into something so wonderful that the Holy Quran praises it, presents it as something, you know, which is so beautiful, the very nectar of the best things of life. So why don't you object against that?
Well, I am objecting.
Because that which enters on the one end is not accepted without change by the alimentary canal system or digestive system, be it of plants or of animals. What goes through the digestive system goes through with complete chemical breakdown and its rearrangement. So anything which is rearranged is reborn, and there is nothing haram in that. Right?
Right.
Thank you.
So in the Holy Quran it says, Allah says that everything in creation has been created for the service of mankind.
Yes,
But
that's
we
correct.
are prohibited the flesh of the swine.
Yes.
But apart from the flesh itself, are there other products of...
But do you eat arsenic?
no.
Why not? Is it
But-
created for you?
It has benefits as well. It can be used
Do
for
you
medicine.
eat anything, any dung or filth, or do you ever drink from the sewage canals?
Yeah.
Huh? No?
No.
Why not? It's created for you. Created for what purpose? In what manner what manner is the service rendered to you by everything? That is the question. Everything is not for eating. Even those words which are not forbidden otherwise, from in relation to the dietary rules and regulations of the Holy Quran, they are not forbidden, yet you do not eat them for other reasons, although they could provide a wholesome meat. Once Hazrat Muslim Maud brought a bird which he had shot, I think it was a parrot or something, and showed with pride to Masih Maud Islam, look here, I have shot this bird. Amsham turned to him and said, look here, every bird is not for eating. Isn't it a beautiful bird? There are some for decoration, for adding charm and color to your human life, by presenting them this wonderful view of beautiful birds, singing birds and dancing birds and this bird and that bird. So everything is created for the service, all right, but it depends on what service will they render. It doesn't mean that everything is created because it is for service, so you eat it up. You can't, anyway. You can't eat iron or gold or silver or earth as such. Yet they're all for your service, aren't they? Please.
I was having a conversation with one person, and he was telling me that he made a comment that a poor man his priority or his concern is to feed his stomach and not to God. I mean, that first is to feed his stomach first, to look after himself, and not to God. I didn't have an answer to that. What can
I can't fully understand the nature of this question. Would you further elaborate it,
Yeah.
please?
What he said was that a poor man, he has time to work and to look after himself. He has to feed himself, his family, and he does not have time to go and pray to God or whatever, because he doesn't find the benefit of it, whereas he finds the benefit to feed himself.
It is the same question which you asked before, and the same is my answer. You see, let's again put both these things on the scales. What God has done for you is He has created you and perfected your image and granted you those 5 faculties without which the human life will not be perfect, without which you will not be able to sustain yourself or your family anyway. If those faculties are dead, you are nothing. And then He has provided the system of sustenance by creating such laws as are responsible for this transformation, fantastic transformation of ordinary elements which you cannot directly digest into food. He has created a system of turning the light of sun into such food as sustains all the life on earth, without exception. If He had not created this system of, of conversion of light energy into food energy with the help of chlorophyll, there will be no life on earth as we know it today. I'm not talking of a phase prior to the phase of biotic growth on earth, which we can have in mind when we say life. The previous forms are called organisms, but not biotic forms. So that is why I ruled them out. Whatever is known as biotic, that is having life, is known to have drawn its energy from the sunlight, albeit indirectly. So all the system and the water, how it rises from the seas, how it is purified in the same process. If there were no rains, no government on earth, however powerful it could be, could retrieve the water which continues to sink down and down until it disappears. Now, there's so much beneficence of Allah which overwhelms you from all sides, and you forget that and you say, I have my family and I have myself to look after. If God withdraws anything which He has given you, even a single thing, even the blessings of water, you know where, how can you sustain yourself? The entire mankind will not be able to sustain itself. So, look at this issue in a much wider perspective. You don't owe Him anything and owe your time entirely to the children God has granted you. And if He had not granted you, you would not be able to do anything anyway. It's so illogical, this attitude. It's so stupid. As if God is the servant, and it is not just what He created, He Himself stands at your bidding, always to fulfill your commands. But when it comes to His call to you, for at least recognizing what has He done, and a very small time out in proportion to what He's granted you here is demanded back. You say, no, God, I have some other things to do. What a logic. Please.
So in namaz we say,
And it does not stand in the way of your sustenance of your family, support of your family anyway. The question has no premise. What happened at the time of Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? those who remained in the mosque, they had no means of livelihood because they themselves most often had sacrificed their time and whatever they had possessed before they accepted Islam, that when they became Muslims, everything was gone, finished. Who sustained them? And why didn't they walk away from the mosque telling, no, we must discharge our responsibilities? Why every religion begins with poverty? Why it is only the poor in the beginning, or almost the poor in the beginning, who support the cause of every religion at its inception? The argument has nothing whatsoever in it. It can be charade to threadbare stupidity as it contains. Please.
Hazur, in namaz we say Assalamu alayka ayya Nabiya, which translates as peace be on you, O Prophet. Now we know, because we're following Sunnah, that the Holy Prophet ﷺ also said this. In what respect was he saying peace be on you?
Do you ever visit a graveyard?
Yes,
Don't you say Assalamu alaikum ya al qubur? Do you say that?
yes.
What does it mean?
Peace be on you, O dwellers.
On you, the dead people? So if that does not stand in the way of your belief and idolatry, then why should that prayer to Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam by addressing him stand in the way of your belief and idolatry? Sometimes you invoke prayer by addressing people, sometimes in absentia. It's only a manner of speech. The more close you feel, the more warmed up in love you feel, you psychologically tend to address the person instead of invoking blessing upon him in third person. You feel agitated enough to say it directly. That is the philosophy of sending your salams to the buried people in graves by addressing them Ya Ahl al-Qubur. When you visit them, when you're close to them. When you're away from them, you never say that. See, you never say Assalamu alaikum ya Ahl al-Qubur. You say, oh Allah bless them who are dead, who are buried. So it's only an issue of your feeling, how you feel close. In the Holy Quran, where it is mentioned, the whole subject is built, the namaz which Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught you, reaches about its conclusion. And that is the time when you really feel the nearness to Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So if the graves justifiably earn the direct address, why not Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who at least in his beneficence is still alive? Right?
Thank you.
Please.
Hazur, mashallah, I have noticed whenever you're reading your Friday sermon, you don't wear glasses and you
Yes.
are always in excellent health. And could you tell your secret?
You see, the secret is from Allah's grace, in fact. But you shouldn't misconstrue from this by seeing me reading without the glasses. My sight has definitely suffered, like it should normally do, but very little. In ordinary daily time I spent in my office, most of the time I do not wear spectacles at all. I read the ordinary mail and things, all right, but when it comes to small print or some hands which are rather involved and spidery, I have to use the spectacles. My number is 1.5, and ever since I first use it, I first realized that I should use some spectacles. It was in 1950. I think it was when I was 52 years old. At that time my number was 1 and now it has advanced to 0.5 only. It is surprising indeed because the experts tell me you should advance much, much more. But it's the grace of Allah. I don't know what the secret is.
How do you keep yourself healthy?
Because I think I'm not keeping myself as healthy as I should, because I don't have time for enough exercise. But I have daily exercise. And there I can tell you one other secret. Turn to homeopathy. If you want to remain really healthy, it's very important to get rid of the allopathic system of drugging. The system itself is so cruel that it destroys your livers, your other glands, directly attacks the heart, etc., kidneys, because when it confronts the presence of viruses or bacteria in the body, it must kill them. And the poisons which are essential for killing life are given to you in the name of drugs. And they have no other alternative but to do that. So it is very naive to believe that they would kill only selectively the foreign elements which are not wanted in the system. When they are powerful and potent enough to kill some forms of life, they also incidentally injure some other forms of life within your system. And no sane allopath would deny this. You know, some quacks may say, no, it is not right. Everybody knows how the liver function is affected adversely, how the heart function is affected, how kidneys receive a negative, are injured sometimes in the membranes within, which is called mucous membranes, and because of overmuch of antibiotics or overmuch of aspirin or overmuch of other such things. So ever since I started homeopathy, I felt that I am feeling definitely, with the grace of Allah, much better than before. My serious attacks of migraine have gone. My hyperacidity with which I lived, which was also responsible for my migraine attacks, it's no more there. Very occasionally I feel, and then I treat myself and it's all right. So because we have banned from our family antibiotics, that's one major factor. Whether homeopathy is good or bad, banning of this antibiotics is definitely good. But when you ban them, you must have some alternative. And that is why I say homeopathy is, mashallah, is a well-tried, well-tested alternative, which is far better than the allopathic system of cure. Right?
So, as Ahmadis, we know very well of the significance of the eclipses of the moon which appeared at the time of the Promised Messiah.
Right.
Recently also, we had another eclipse of the moon earlier this week. But can you tell us, if there are any significances to the
I already spoke on this subject the other day. Yesterday, was it?
The day before yesterday.
Day before yesterday, yes. On Friday, yes. Every eclipse does not have any significance. It's impossible for every eclipse to have it. They happen so many times, From the time of Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam up to this time, thousands upon thousands of eclipses have taken place. Maybe 1,000 multiplied by 1,000, But they don't mean anything. In the prophecy, the one eclipse or set of eclipses which was mentioned was specifically mentioned as a sign of Allah. And that was to occur during the month of Ramadan and on certain dates. It was also to be observed from the same horizon, from the same vantage point from which people see things on the horizon, I mean. So after that, how many times it may happen, as many times as it may, we're not cared, we're not concerned, because they are not mentioned in any prophecy of either of the Quran, of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or of Jesus Christ sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The moon and the sun eclipse which you mentioned, they are all mentioned also in the Quran and in the New Testament. That is why they are important and significant. Right?
Thank you.
So, interest is banned in the Quran and in Islam, as we know. But in this modern day and modern financial world, there are so many different types of financial products, which some are clearly interest, and others, like for example, where a government wants to borrow money, it offers what are called gilts. Now, it is our duty to help the government, but then you are receiving interest from them.
On this, the Jamaat has already carried out research and published the considered opinions of Ahmadi scholars, which were also approved by the Khalifatul Masih of the time. So all this has been done and settled. Only you have to specifically ask the question, to send the question to Ifta or Mufti Silsila, relating the conditions which are relevant to the issue which is bothering you, and then he will answer you very clearly whether with these conditions this contract would be halal or haram in Islam.
Are
Right?
there any general guidelines for what is interest and what is not interest?
Things are very much confused nowadays. I think it shouldn't be sufficient for me to give guidelines so that people can draw their own conclusions safely. I have spoken on this subject repeatedly at different occasions. If you listen to those answers collectively, I think then inshallah you'll be able to decide for yourself. And for that you better turn to our department, which has prepared, who is it, Sheikh Saab?
Sheikh Bashar.
Sheikh Bashar Saab. He has prepared a system, like a computerized system, through which, with the help of which, you can reach any subject which I have discussed during any of my sermons, question and answer sessions, etc. So you just write to him, I want answers on this issue, and he will lead you to exactly the cassettes or videos, etc., which they have available here in the central records. So you make your mind and get whatever you like, right?
Yes, thank you.
He has done a lot of job.
Yes.
Mashallah.
Yes.
Very systematically he has prepared this. Like the keys to read something, he has prepared a key to read the subjects which I have discussed at various occasions, so that any interested person can go directly to that particular video or cassette, right? And now I am told that the time is over. Is that right? The time in this discussion passes very quickly, isn't it? Yes. But I am very happy to have met you. Allah bless you. At present, I think Mauritius is not able to see us and view us.
I think he's just starting this month.
They have?
I think so.
No, but the transponder through which we are reaching the world, I mean the Asia or Eastern world, is only a hemi-beam, a single hemi-beam. And the other hemi-beam has not yet been provided to us.
Oh.
But the real good, excellent performance will begin when we switch over from the hemi-beams to the full transpondent, which is called global beam. That would begin, inshallah, within May, we hope. What happened, they had promised us that global beam by the 1st of April.
Yeah.
That is why we were talking of that.
Yeah.
But because of an accident, that satellite was destroyed during the course of its launching, which they were to use for this purpose particularly. So we protested against this and made such a big noise, along with others who suffered along with us, like many Europeans companies, independent companies. They also were expecting this satellite to be launched on the 1st of April, and they had spent so much on this. So now the board has decided finally to shift another satellite to the position where this new satellite was to occupy. So they say this will be possible within May, inshallah. And when it is possible, they will give us a full global beam on that satellite. Then things will be very different, 24 hours you will be able to watch, listen, etc. on the television, Ahmadiyya programs, 24 hours a day. And the quality would be excellent because the global beam is very powerful. The most powerful they make in this, And we had to pay extra, but it's nothing.
The money will come.
Inshallah.
It's amazing that now the message of Ahmad not only reaches the four corners of the world, but it reaches 24 hours a day.
That's right.
It's Yes. That's what I think.